So Hydra, one of the most underrated sorcerer spells, I think. Untapped power, ready to be harnessed, I would say, based on our test results here. Very exciting. The Hydra is already surprisingly very strong. I think the biggest issue with it is that darned casting delay that keeps you from A, repositioning, or just summoning them to full DPS potential as quickly as possible is the issue. So this is why some players will say Hydra is very powerful and others will say it's weak as all hell, right? So I think it's in a decent spot right now. Like if you were to summon, I tried withholding my casting of Fireball just to get a good read on how powerful Hydra was by itself. And it's actually fairly strong. I was taking on player 7 Baal runs. No problems really. I even got a couple, it was between 4 and 5 minutes typically. The biggest issue was the 5th Baal wave, the last Baal wave, was a little difficult because they're all fire immune. And we are a hybrid build, so we're running Frozen Orb as our secondary here. So it's fire and cold, but the Frozen Orb is very weak because you only have a few points to invest in it. And luckily that's all you need. However, when you come against such healthy targets, or healthful targets, you can't really take them down easily. So the workaround for the Baal runs is just to kite them out of the throne room and then progress and kill Baal. Now, something you utilize quite often with this particular build is static field, because what are you going to do after you deploy our Hydras, or in this case, pre-patch, I'm doing it in between casting my Hydra, is you're using spells such as static field, fireball, and even when the casting delay is removed from Hydra, right now it's shared with Frozen Orb, which is very, very bad. However, if it's removed, you could theoretically cast Frozen Orb, then deploy your Hydras, cast Frozen Orb again, deploy Hydras, and like this, you know, kind of weave in DPS. Or you could do the same for Fireball. Deploy all your Hydras if you're in the same location, then cast Static, then Fireball to put on even more DPS, right? So in my testing, I was not doing this, but you could totally increase your DPS versus Baal quite considerably, I think, if you were able to do that, right? So I feel like the damage versus single target is actually in a pretty darn good spot. The issue mostly comes in with multi-target. Now, with a mid-sized density, so like the Baal waves, for example, have, you know, maybe 10, 15 targets, it's quite fine because your Hydras will focus different enemies, but eventually as they start to kill off the numbers, they'll start focusing the same targets, and then it sort of snowballs to where as you dwindle down to the last few remaining unique monsters, it's gonna like burn through them because all the Hydras are then focused on those enemies. So to solve this, we actually use Fireball. After you've deployed your Hydras and done static, it's the best ability for AoE. It does a very small AoE, but it covers enough tiles nonetheless. It's also a natural synergy of Hydra, so this is a great one to use to finish off those low health cows. However, it is better to use in a pure setup. So the hybrid setup has decent fireball damage, but it cannot peak. You're not investing into meteors, so if you were to run a pure fire setup, fully synergizing that fireball as well, you could put out even more AoE for the cow runs and single target DPS. So in terms of killing Baal, the pure build can do it, which makes it the more flexible option in this sense. However, I think the hybrid is also a great choice because it can do general farming a lot better, and that first Baal wave is a lot more readily dispatched by the hybrid. However, the pure build does kill Baal faster, in my opinion, so it's kind of, they even out in that function, and they each have their focus. From this standpoint, I don't think Hydra needs like a huge buff. once we're able to just readily deploy them, I think that'll solve most of the issue. However, if they were to get, say, a 20% damage increase, I would think that's okay, because they're still not as powerful as Blizzard for sure. And I honestly think they're in a better spot right now than Nova is. Nova probably needs even more of an increase than I was originally thinking, because it's barely scraping players 3, right? So there's something to be said with that. Now, fire penetration on gear. This is a Taurasha build that I am running. Lightning and cold both have very non-set variations that are better. However, the fire works best with Taurasha, surprisingly. So the DPS output that you can get with the set is better than any other. You get 15% from the orb itself. Something cool about the orb too, the swirling crystal here, is that it gives you cold mastery. So combined with infinity, your off element DPS from Frozen Orb, even though it's not synergized with Ice Bolt, is pretty darn good. You know, it's decent. It's not in the dumps, right? And then we're also getting 15% from the facets. So you put 5 facets in your helm, chest, and weapon. You can swap this out for an Istrun if you prefer, but I feel like 236 MF is a pretty good spot to be. The huge difference here that we're doing is we're not running a Spirit Shield like you normally would with this setup. We're running a Phoenix. Phoenix gives minus 28 fire resistance to enemies. It gives a much higher damage base for our attacks, especially against magic resistant monsters. We also have the Redemption Aura. So mana will be a factor. Right now it's not, because there's the casting delay that keeps our mana in check. However, you have to consider Hydra costs, 38-40 mana per cast. If we're repositioning much more often or deploying them quicker, we're going to deplete our mana pool much faster than we would now. And we're going to need some source of mana regeneration, whether it be plus mana to keep mana regeneration high. We don't want to swap in an insight because infinity is just much better. Warmth is a potential here, but we don't have the points if you want to hybrid with Frozen Orb, that is, right? So, yeah, it's just much better to have the Redemption Aura, and that will recover your life and mana. Now, something I didn't mention before is that Fireball, you can use it, however, it's not going to be fully synergized. You see Meteor is a synergy here, so it will be strong, it just won't be like super strong if you were like going a Meteor Fireball build. And I did opt for Blaze because in patch 2.4, Blaze will include extra movement speed. In this particular build, because we're running the Phoenix, we don't have as much room for faster cast rate. We do hit the 63.9 frame breakpoint though. It feels pretty good for this type of build, that all things said. However, moving around felt a little better because kiting back, you want to keep your Hydras and your Mercenary kind of in the same area, and teleporting is great for repositioning in that manner, but I felt like kiting was a little bit better sometimes. So you're going to be running around a little bit more as compared to like a Blizzard or a Nova build perhaps. So getting that Blaze might be just something really nice to have. And then also we're running the Sandstorm Trex boots here, just to get that higher hit recovery, and resistances were a little bit more of an issue. So getting that poison res in here is pretty nice as well. And the hit recovery as well, you get hit recovery from the Taurasha set, 25%, and then the rest of it comes from your +1 skillers, giving faster hit recovery. So even though you don't get life on your charms here, the Taurasha set in general gives a lot of life and mana, so you're still, close in to 2400, 2500 life, thereabouts. And we still have room for a few more MF charms, keeping your MF at a reasonable level as well, 236. Pretty darn good. We're running Stones of Jordan, and then the Mage Fists. +1 fire skills, always good. Cast rate as well. So, yeah, it's just a well-rounded build, and I actually enjoy playing it, and I think it's going to be in a very good spot come patch 2.4. We are running the defensive Nightmare Mercenary. I tested both variants, the offensive Mercenary with the Might Aura, and I kind of felt like, especially in that Baal clip, you saw me just getting demolished by Baal. I think the slow from the Holy Freeze is just a much better fit for this particular character, considering you do have an off element option. So yep, anyways, hope you enjoy this build and hope you enjoy patch 2.4 preview. This is a good benchmark, looking good. Yeah, anyways, bye-bye.